Oh, yeah. Oh, I've told you now anyway. Right. Okay. Yeah, far away, my love.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
please
sorry.
do.
I didn't press. Oh,
Please
you've
do
pressed that,
ask
have
me
you?
about the policies because
No.
Clive Palmer is the best bloke in the world. That's my
Oh, yeah,
opinion.
sorry,
Yeah.
Mark. I haven't started recording yet, but I just wanted to find out first. So, your matter, it's still in
It's before the
in
court, darling, and I've just told you what the situation is. Don't ask me anything else, all right?
All right. Well, look,
Oh, I'm gonna hang up.
well, just as a public interest thing, I'll probably have to ask you once, and then you just
No,
let me know.
I've told you my answer. So what have I just said to you?
Well, look, how about we just start recording, and then I can get into, because basically I really want to find out everything about your policies and what you're hoping to.
Yeah, and that's all you're going to get from me. I'll tell you that now. It is before the court. I am not stopping at anything short of an unconditional discharge. End of story.
All right, that's fine. Look, that's fine. That's what I want to sort of find out as well, because obviously it's been in the media and everything. So
no, don't ask me, love. You're prejudicing the issue. All right. You ask me again, I'm going to hang up.
How about we just get started, and you let me know if you feel like you can't answer something. That's fine.
I'm not talking about any of that. It is before the court, darling. You are not allowed to ask me anything. All right.
No, I won't be asking you particulars about the case at all.
So that's why your card is marked. All right, your card is marked. You are a third-rate news agency. Let me tell you that.
I haven't actually asked you any questions yet. I'm just trying to find out what I can and can't ask you, and I have to ask you.
I have given you my answer. Do not ask me anymore. Got that? I'm not quite clear about that.
Yes, I won't be asking you about the particulars of the court case. Of course, I will not ask you that.
Do not do that.
Okay, all right, but I do need to ask you
all right.
questions.
You ask me again, I'm hanging up. All right.
All right. Well, look, let's just record and we'll see how we go. But look, I'm not going to ask you anything that I'm not supposed to ask you as a public interest.
But I've given you my answer, love. If you're going to ask me anything else, I'll hang up now. Do you want me to hang up?
Look, no, I don't want you to hang up. I'd like the public to know what you're standing for.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Okay, so let's just get started, and we'll go from there.
Clive Palmer is very kindly sponsored me, and he's an absolute blooming victim himself of political noveling, interference, persecution, oppression, and that is why I'm standing. It's actually my main motivation, if you want to know. I will introduce within 1 week. You recording?
Yes, I'm just about to start. So if you're happy, I can just give you a first question. So, so Mr. Jessup, what you've moved from your interest from the seat of Caloundra to the federal seat of Dixon.
No, I'm standing against Peter Dutton is what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about why you're doing that.
He's the one orchestrating this Queensland cop. I know when I'm being fucked over, basically. So I'm standing against him. Anything I can do to stop him getting in, that's it.
Just reminding you that it's actually recording at the moment. So just tell me what your motivations are for running.
Oh, absolutely. Fighting for freedom. You know, these freedoms have been fought for and won. Good men have died, you know, but all my family and everything else took part in the Second World War and wars since. And for the freedom of, basic freedom of nominating and standing for Parliament. That's it. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing it. That's the only reason I'm doing it. I'll tell you that now. Nothing, as long as I'm breathing, nothing will stop me doing that. I'll tell you that now.
So you're a businessman and, you're a landlord also, I believe.
I used to be. Back in the UK, I did, yeah.
Okay. What are your specific policies then? I believe you've got an interest in addressing the housing crisis.
Oh, for God, yeah. Yeah, you know, the useless twits in government, they've got 10 billion fund. They haven't built one house. They have not got a clue about how to do anything at all. They import millions of people every year without planning for any accommodation for them. A million people needs 1 million units of accommodation. They haven't done that. They are that hopeless. They are completely incompetent. And you can guarantee that anyone else that I know thinks the same. They're absolutely hopeless. You should just kick them out. Yeah, and they won't stop people like me ever. I tell you that now. I'm British, I'm English, but I'm also Australian, and I was born here, and I've got every right to do this, and I'm doing it. So anything that's going to stand in that way, watch out. I will, within 1 week of winning the election, which I will. I tell you that no one wants to vote for either Labour or Liberal if they were the last party on earth, you know. But basically, that is it. You need to build a load of. I've watched the same thing happen in Australia, particularly Queensland, when they remember that Childers backpacker thing. They just closed down all the type of accommodation that homeless people would otherwise occupy, namely backpackers and motels, you know. Yeah, you try getting the planning system as you've got it here, you know, you need automatic planning permission for something like a backpacker or a motel. Whatever it is, wherever it's got to go, it should be automatic, because that's why you've got 120,000 more people homeless in Australia, and in Queensland or on Sunshine Coast, it's 1,600 actually, and you could solve it in no time at all. You really could. Yeah.
How do you propose changing it in 1 week?
No, in 1 week, I'm going to introduce legislation whereby any hint of political persecution or oppression qualifies for 8 weeks custodial sentence and 177 grand of legal fees, which is what it cost me. That will be the penalty for political oppression. There it is.
But actually getting houses on the ground, no, Mr. Jessup.
That's what I'd do, yeah. That's what will happen. Backdated to the previous election cycle, a bit like the, you know, financial declarations. You have to report everything that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years, 3 years in this case. And that's what it will be. If there's any political persecution during that time, that's what they're up for. Okay? That's what will happen. That's what
does the trumpets what does the trumpet of patriots actually stand for?
Oh, obviously. I mean, you're talking about people that, like me, who have successfully and solvently run a business, pay their wages, billions of it. These scroungers, basically, in the Parliament who retire on full salary with jet flights and everything. They're all in there. You know, Mr. Albanese's got 3 properties, you know. How does he get them from where? From corruption, basically, yeah, from the unions and all that. There's a whole lot of problems in the political system where Labour is entirely funded by unions, basically. That's where they get their money from, when they're not spending our money to fund their own publicity campaigns. And that's why you got these fuckwits, I'm sorry, that's the only term from, in Parliament right now, making such a total cock of absolutely blooming everything. And Mr. Trump, President Trump, you need someone like that here, and you're lucky you've got it in the form of people like me and Clive Palmer, let me tell you that.
Just to remind you again, we are recording just with your language, Mr. Jessup, because we do have...
You can beat that one up.
Look, just so why did you join? You've been going for local politics, and now you're changing to federal.
I've done the whole lot. I've run in 8 elections, actually. Yeah, 8 since 2009, when this political oppression began. And to be honest, that's my main motivation. So I am not going to... You have got people who are actually frightened. They're scared to run for office. They are. There's people, victims littered around who had the, you know, Pauline Hanson, Fraser Anning, Clive Palmer, all those people have experienced this firsthand, and they, you know, we just look at each other, go, hey, they're not going to beat us. I'll tell you that now. So, but Clive is very. I actually emailed him. I said, mate, you sponsor me, and I'll be your friend for life, you know, because, you know, after 8 elections, that's a lot of money down the drain. It really is. You know, you put a lot of time and effort. It's a labour of love, and you get absolutely shafted is the only term for it, because of the political oppression. And it seems to be accepted practice. I say no. It should be on the par with workplace bullying, and domestic violence. That's the legislation you are going to get when you vote for Michael Jessup. Basically, that's it.
So take me through some of those specific policies.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I mean, homelessness is I was a landlord in the UK, and I tell you, I had 15 units of accommodation, which I was letting out quite happily. And you get all these idiots in government bringing in this legislation that just want to close them down. That's the type of accommodation that homeless people, would otherwise occupy. How I'd deal with it. Nothing.
So you're looking at putting that type of accommodation within the seat of Dixon?
Yeah, all over Queensland, all over Caloundra, Sunshine Coast, Queensland, all around the country. This is what I will do. This is what will happen. When you elect me, when, if and when, not if either, when you elect me, I will have, it's possible on a 2,000 square meter block, you can actually have 30 motel rooms. Okay, so now this is all you need. This is all you need. You ask any motelier or even hotelier, all you need is a 6 meter by 4 meter by 3 meter high unit, which you can build out a freezer panel for about $15,000. Okay, once you got the slab, and then you put obviously a shower, toilet, and don't even need a kitchen really. You just need a air dryer, air fryer, and a microwave. That way you've got accommodation with one person, a couple. I mean, enough beds in it. You can have a whole family in there, and you can put 30 of these on a 2,000 meter square block of land, basically. So what I would change is the mandatory planning permission, because at the moment, if you buy 2,000 square meters, you can't apply for planning permission until you've actually bought it. So now, to apply for planning permission, invariably, you have to change for either material change of use or rezoning. This process will take you 2, 3, 4, 5 years to do. And you own this land, it might be $1 million, wherever it is, and you're paying interest on that mortgage, about 8 or 9, 10 grand a month for about 3, 4, 5 years. Why do you think no one's building anything? You need mandatory, immediate planning permission for that type of accommodation.
Do you have support from local business's or constituents that you've already
Anyone
spoken
that knows me doesn't disagree with a word I say. I tell you that now. They're successful businessmen like I am, and you saw that, or you saw all that first quarter of this year. You saw a range of solid unemployment. That's all the businesses that are just saying, mate, it is not worth the risk. You're looking at 10 years, the kind of legislation that Albanese has done for farting in church, and that's a term for it. You're up for 10 years jail. You're not making that kind of money to be taking that kind of risk. I know so many people that have actually gone back to New Zealand or the UK or wherever because it is financially not viable to run a business. Let me tell you, I wouldn't even consider, I've got a business of 26 years, and it's successful, but I would not even consider starting a business here in Australia under this economic environment. I wouldn't. I tell you that now.
Mr. Jessup, you mentioned the domestic violence policy before. What are you actually aiming for there? Is this the perpetrator amnesty that you've spoken about in the past?
You got it. Good on you. I'm so pleased. Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Janel.
Who? Sorry.
Janel?
Janel, right. Janell. No, that's all right. Don't worry. I got you on.
Well, no, it's not actually. But look, that's okay. I can send you my details again.
Yeah, that's all right.
You tell me about the domestic
violence stuff. Yeah, what you've got at the moment.
Oh no, sorry, Mr. Jessup. You just mentioned before your policies. You had housing, and you mentioned that there was a domestic violence policy. So I'm just referring back to what you mentioned.
I will tell you if you let me answer you. I'm switched on to this, love. I tell you, I've got a 3 months here now. I've set aside a month to do all this, so I'm on it basically. So domestic violence at the moment. You have got Jacques Hughes, from the French Revolution, without investigation evidence or even trial, a bloke can find himself in jail for alleged domestic violence. If he commits any kind of offence that is domestic violence related, there's no bail. So you've got the prisons are 80% overcrowded. They're over capacity. I know because I can tell you that this is completely unjust. Because for something like sending a text message or a phone call or even an email, you can find yourself in jail. Now, if someone says, "Is that unfair?" I said, "Never mind unfair. That it is unjust. That needs to be repealed. You've got for a civil allegation, you've got a criminal penalty, which is completely wrong." And there's blokes walking around with blooming, ankle bracelets and 5-10 year blooming DV orders for doing absolutely nothing based on someone's vindictive say so, for hurt feelings. That's it. With my own, in my own experience,
And how do you find? How do you think the legislation should be changed to cater for that?
Oh, without any doubt, you should remove this anomaly. It's not an anomaly. It's man-hating legislation from the Palaszczuk government. That's where it's from. Man-hating. With incapable of having relations with members of the opposite sex. That's it. That's all it is. But basically, you repeal that so that there's no. It's back out of the civil court into the criminal where it belongs, because domestic violence, there's about 10 forms of it, aren't there? I don't know what, and actually one of those is actually physical violence, and that is quite unfair. That's not right. No one more than me is in favor of dealing with that, and you can do it very effectively. You really can. But for stuff like sending a text message and I don't know what, sending an email or being a man, basically, you can find yourself in a jail. You really can. Someone like me, I'm lucky. I can do, I'm able to do something about it. And which of course I have done, and there's absolutely no way, that there's people in that jail who they've been there for years. They're literally waiting for trial because they've got no bail. You see, and now the bail is something else that prison reform is also a central part of top policy. Trumpet Patriots policy is bail. You know what bail is, don't you? Where you don't get, you go in the slammer and you're there. So once you're in the slammer, you can't communicate. You've got no smartphone, no PC, no access to anything. You've got one phone call, and at the time when it's most critical to defend your case, you have no means of doing so. You've got no access to funds. You can't pay a lawyer. You can if you know what to do, and you got mates, like I have. But basically, it is the most unjust system going. Basically, it's medieval. I tell you, that needs to change, and it will do.
Okay.
What you need, the reform is going to be on the Scandinavian model, which is you take, as a problem school child, you don't chuck them in jail and throw away the key. You actually, you're talking about the most capable, able, and competent people in jail, quite unproductively for, the cost of the economy must be, well, it is enormous. And what you need to do is just have, what is it? House detention, so that they still have their freedoms restricted, but they undergo an individual. They've all got, let me tell you, the people in that jail, they've all got real problems, from real poverty and deprivation in their lives or extenuating or circumstances. And it's not going to help anyone at all, basically. Let me tell you, putting him in jail is the worst thing you can do for him. It really is. And the repeat offending and quite serious deprivations of liberty are in no one's interest at all. Least of all, the people. It costs. I think it's something like, I have the figure, so I haven't got it in front of me, but it's about $1 million to keep someone in jail for 9 months. That's it. That's what it costs, and the actual outcome is nothing but reoffending, and you're in there with offenders, really quite serious offences, murder and rape and all this sort of drugs and dangerous driving, all that sort of thing. But 80% of the people in that jail are there for domestic violence. They've done nothing at all. They really haven't, and it's just how it is, basically. So so your bail needs to be appealed, and you need to the cost of doing it would be nothing. I mean, you just have the Scandinavian model. That's it. They have very little crime and very little reoffending because they treat each individual as, he's a social case. He's a social worker case. That's why he's in there.
What would you say to victims who say you're underestimating the power of what that's happened to them?
Well, you get this, but the fact is, I'm sorry. I was married for 26 years, and I have to tell you, when I eventually split up from my wife, I actually determined I would not tolerate any kind of domestic violence from the woman. I'm talking about domestic violence being committed by women against their menfolk. I'm talking about abuse, emotional, psychological, financial, you name it. That's occurring without penalty more often than not by the partner, not the bloke.
But men can take recourse as well. It doesn't mean
not
that
at all.
women
No, they
shouldn't be able
can't.
to.
As long as you've got this Jack Hughes Anastasia Palaszczuk legislation, guilty until proved innocent. That's not or guilty until proved guilty in the case of where it is at the moment. That is not just. It is unjust, and that's what you need to change. It sort of kind of amuses me that the first case of coercive control in the UK was brought against a woman. There you go. Because, they are really actually, just as controlling as men when it comes to jealousy and, relationships.
And the law should be there for both genders.
Yeah, you bet. Let me tell you, I chose my second wife, who I've been with for 10 years, without any. She's Thai, and I tell you, the tranquility and peace, I absolutely love it. I went through about a dozen girlfriends, let me tell you, and I said, any hint of domestic violence, they're gone. Walk away. And that's my advice to anyone, really, male or female, but in particular, it's being perpetrated by just as much by both sexes, I'm afraid. Yeah.
So also just moving on, Mr. Jessup, how do you respond to concerns that your current legal situation could overshadow the campaign or distract from issues facing the electorate?
It doesn't overshadow me at all. It's the actual reason I'm doing this. It really is. So that's the answer to your question. You are not permitted to ask any further questions in relation to that, or I'm going to hang up.
Okay. I guess that's. I'm not asking particulars about the case.
Then please don't. If you want to ask me about policies of actually turning this economy, we have no industry or worth speaking of with its headquarters in Australia or most places in the Western world, because they've given it all away to China. For the last 30, 40, probably longer years, they've actually crucified, there's no other word for it, industry here. Chinese things, they're at a 99% advantage, still doing badly, but they don't pay any tax at all. We are the ones paying 42 different taxes, like 11 taxes to employ someone, and all the other ones you got to pay permits, licenses, registration, rates. I'd abolish rates. I would abolish business rates. That's what I'd do, and I would replace it with what I call a GGST, which is Gifts, Goods and Services Tax, and you can ask me about that in a minute.
Well, can I ask you how you would reassure voters concerned about the legal issues and what position that might put you in? Can I ask you that?
Well, that is my primary motivation for doing this, and there's absolutely, as I've said to you twice now, and I will not permit any further questions on that. I will stop at nothing short of a complete unconditional discharge. And that's my primary motive for actually standing. So it's actually a positive. That's it. Do not ask me any further questions.
All right, Mr. Jessup. And you just mentioned before with regards to tax reform. What were you mentioning about that?
Tax reform, you bet. Well, at the moment, as I say, as a businessman, I can tell you, you have got to account for and pay 42 different kinds of taxation. Bureaucracy and taxation. For example, the GST, which is so disappointing because I came here just when they introduced it. That's why I came to Australia, if you want to know. Get away from VAT, same thing. You spend 100 hours of your time just reporting in detail on every little transaction, when you could do the whole thing plus your corporate tax, plus your income tax and all the rest of it, you could replace the whole lot. Let me tell you, if you had a thing called GGST, that's what I call it. I like the name. It stands for Gifts, Goods and Services Tax. And what it would be 0.5% in, 0.5% out credit debit tax on every single electronic and cash transaction, but electronic particularly, on everybody, everything. None of these trusts, charitable, non-profit, all the rest. Everyone would have to pay it, 0.5%. So if you go spend $50 down the supermarket, that's 25 cents, and or $100, that's 50 cents that you'd pay. Now, this would replace. Now, just calculations. Roughly 200 billion goes through the banks every day. Okay, so credit debit 1%. That's 2 billion a day. Okay, work this out. There's your calculator. 2 billion times 365 equals 730 billion in taxation raised without any paperwork at all. Now, this would raise more than the current GST or income tax combined. They raise about half of that. You with me? So the only people that will be paying it will be mostly people that don't pay it already, that aren't paying any tax at all, like the big corporates and all that. Any transaction through the bank, and they say, oh, no, you can't do it because offshore. Yeah, no, you can't spend the money here unless you're paying this 0.5% in and out. And same goes for credit. For cash, because, people that, farmers markets and all that, they're the one, they don't have any money, do they? So, but they still have to pay the 0.5% if they still want the paperwork, not to use electronic. They can still use cash. I would go coinage. I'd go $5 coin, $10 coin, no more notes, anything like that. So you want to pay 10 grand. You're carrying a wheelbarrow around really, and that would do it. That would raise more money. That would give every business owner 100 hours. That's 3 weeks holiday from doing blooming paperwork for the GST, for example. Never mind the handbrake that goes on the economy every quarter when people do their BAS, I can tell you, or their annual return. The country goes to sleep while it's working out how much money they haven't got, and they're paying way too much. People like you and me, that would solve your cost of living thing straight away. It really would. They'd have more money straight away just by people paying the 0.5% who don't pay any tax at all. That's it. There you go. You heard it first on the ABC News here. Thank you, Janelle.
That's okay, Michael Jessup. Mr. Jessup, just finally, what's your message to your voters in your seat?
Oh, well, it's really obvious. It really is. 1/3 of them Albanese got in on less than a third of the vote, and it's the same either way with the politically oppressive regimes perpetrated or orchestrated by the so-called major parties. They're not. You talk to them, they haven't got a clue. They honestly, it's in one ear out the other. The message to them is, please do vote for Trump and the Patriots' top candidate, Michael Jessup, particularly in Dixon against Mr. Dutton, and for real change. You are talking about good men who have the courage, and I've got plenty of that, as you can tell, who are willing to, they've got the gifts and the know-how and the skills, administrative and executive skills. If you're a CEO or a director of a company, you are a capable person. Like Clive Palmer, he's the best bloke in the world. Let me tell you, anyone that knows him or has dealt with him, he knows what to do. He's like Trump. He knows how to negotiate, and he knows how to close the deal, basically. You've only got one option, and that is, please, you've got a candidate in every electorate pretty well. Actually, they're most scared in Queensland, where you've got the Queensland police fully in collusion with political oppression. They really have, I can tell you that, but firsthand. And let me tell you, for every election over the last 15 years, basically, 2009, oh God, do I remember. Every election, 1, 2, 3, 9 policemen on your doorstep. And there's my poor lady wife, and you go, what's going on here? I said, no, there's another election coming up. Everyone knows it goes on, and they're not doing anything about it. I am. And that's who you want to vote for. Coming to remove this. I will introduce legislation that penalizes actively political oppression. Done. So yeah, please do. You've got to do it. I'm doing a meet the candidate. I've got to fix the time yet, but the one in I've forgotten it. Sanford. That's right. So I'll let you know if you like. Well, your name's Janelle, isn't it? I've got your ABC Sunshine Coast, is it?
That's right. But yeah, look, so to confirm, you'll be telling voters that they can trust you regardless of the serious criminal charges that you face at the moment.
I have explained to you that I will be stopping at nothing short of an unconditional discharge on trumped-up charges, okay? That's what these are. So they have I have got no criminal record of any kind whatsoever in my whole life. I am 70 years old. All right, I'm not about to start now, and I've had this a couple of times actually in the past. Each time, you see what happens is they bring the charges against you. You tie up 177 grand. That's what it's cost me so far, and in the hope that you won't stand or run. I hate to disappoint them. That's the main. What you want is someone who is unafraid. There are people who are scared. They're actually frightened to even stand for Parliament or say anything against. Let me tell you, people. I know people that say, "Well, you're brave." I say, "Actually, I'm an ex-mountaineer. I'm a caver and a diver, and a lot of others. I'm a rugby player, and a cricket player, which of course will cause a fair amount of competence and determination. You're picking a winner because that's it. All these ones, these professional politicians and things, they have not got a clue. They can't have. To introduce, they say they're going to reduce the bureaucracy and they're going to reduce the taxation. Man, you're paying $1 in tax for a litre of diesel. Okay, you're paying 79 cents in the per litre on petrol. This is a huge amount of money. It is not invested in the roads. It is just what's known as a general fund, and they are taking our money and chucking it down the drain. That's it. And the worms have turned here. Basically, that's it. And I don't know anyone that disagrees with me about any of the policies that Clive's putting forward, and certainly ones that I will be more than happy to progress. And something like the TEALs, let me tell you, they are funded by China. Did you know that? Climate 200, that is specifically so they can undermine the Australian economy. That's what they're doing. So.
Well, look, Mr. Jessup, thanks for sharing your key pillars of your campaign with me today. I really appreciate it.
You've got it. All right, Janelle, I will be in touch. All right, I'll let you know where this Meet the Candidate is. Okay?
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You got it. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.